someone else do some giving. Love is all around, no need to waste it. You can have it down, why don't you take it? You might just make it after all. You might just make it after all.
Welcome to the Standing for Reason podcast with Mike and Alex, where we are not for the faint of thought. Well, we survived week one, right?
Yeah, I guess bloody and bruised, but I guess we survived.
Holy shit! But it's only week one. It's hard. Well, let's jump into it. Let's talk about what's happening in week one, and it's been a week and a day since what is now known as the National Patriotic Devotion Day. That is Donald Trump's election day. That's what he dubbed it. But he has wasted no time kind of just making America what he wanted to make it already. Starting with his executive orders. So one of the first ones that came out since our last episode was he signed off for the wall. Now, Congress still has to vote on it, but the arguments to build this wall are basically coming from three different laws that are already existing. One of them is being the Immigration and Nationality Act that was signed in June of 1968. Basically, this bill ended the previous formulas. Back before that, we used to allow immigrants into this country based on a percentage of nationalities and different countries that we get them from. The Immigration and Nationality Act of 1968 shifted that focus to a percentage based on or an allocated percentage of immigration based on attracting skilled labor and reuniting families, which reuniting families is not at all what Trump is doing, but he's using that law. His second law that he's using to argue this is the Illegal Immigration Reform and Immigration Responsibility Act. This was signed into law in September of 1996 under Bill Clinton, and this basically is imposing stricter punishments on illegal immigration, and it includes stricter punishments for smuggling and forging fake documents. And the third one that he's using is the Secure Fence Act. This was signed into law under George W. Bush in 2006. And it allowed him and Obama to build, between the two of them, 652 more additional miles of fencing. And along with that, they added more checkpoints and more technology such as cameras, lighting, and even satellite surveillance along the American-Mexican border. So like I said, Congress still has to approve this, but what ends up happening if this goes through, and we mentioned it before, we're paying for it. Because now, he's talking about basically imposing a tax on Mexican imports up to 20%, and tariffs are taxes paid by us, not tariffs that are going to be paid by Mexico.
Yeah, that means my beloved tequila is going to be more expensive, limes, avocados, and there's not to mention there's a lot of things that are produced in the United States and then sent to Mexico for assembly, and then they come back into the United States. And technically, those are Mexican products, so that's going to hurt American businesses as well. They'll have to pay, or their product will be affected by that 20% tax. So, right. Way to go, Mr. Trump.
Way to negotiate
so far.
So glad we got a businessman in the office. So,
I guess real quick, I did read an article that said that the Mexican president agreed. Well, first he canceled the meeting with Donald Trump after this executive order was signed, but the article that I was just reading said he's agreed now to speak with him, have a relationship with him, basically, as long as he doesn't ever again bring up the idea that Mexico will pay for the wall. So in case you need any kind of closure on the issue, Mexico is not paying for that fucking wall, which is a hashtag.
Which he said twice now.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
relationships are nuts. I mean, he held a joint press conference with the Prime Minister of Britain yesterday. It seemed to be nice, I guess, but it's just
Nice. Did you hear what he told the British reporter for asking him a tough question?
no, yeah, no. I
Yep.
mean,
He just
nice in the sense that they seemed united, the two of them.
oh,
But no, go
that's
ahead and tell the story.
yeah. That's because she's not a leftist politician in Britain, but
Right.
yeah. So a British journalist asked a tough question, and his response was, "Now our relationship's finished. You just killed that relationship, basically. Like
Yeah.
you'll never ask the mighty Trump a question again."
It's ridiculous, but a good, somewhat side note here. Good news coming out of Britain. It did pass that Parliament now has to vote on Brexit. So Brexit is not a complete 100% deal, which kind of sucks because we made a stupid decision too, and we have to
There's
live with ours. But anyway, so moving on, the next executive order that we want to talk about today is the Muslim ban. That's official. And I remember hearing Trump supporters saying, oh, he's not going to ban all Muslims. I heard pundits tell supporters of his giving interviews. He's not going to support all Muslims. And
Well, but let's be clear though. This is not all Muslims. This is a 7-country ban.
yeah,
Iraq, Syria, Iran, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and Yemen. None of those countries have their citizens have committed fatal terrorist attacks on United States soil. The countries that he's allowing immigration from are ones that he and his companies has previously done business in, such as Egypt, Saudi Arabia, and countries like that are Muslim majority countries. You can't tell me Saudi Arabia is not Muslim. I wonder why they're not in the ban.
well, yeah. The main part, I made a list as well. And the 7 countries they do not include Pakistan, as you said, Saudi Arabia, Lebanon, Kyrgyzstan, I think is how you pronounce that. Pakistan, Egypt. Now, all of these countries combined contributed to 9/11, San Bernardino attacks, Boston bombing, Paris. It's suspected that they influenced the Charlie Hebdo attack. None of these countries were involved in any of the prominent terrorist attacks. I didn't research all the ones that were foiled or anything like that, but any of the ones that everybody knows about, none of these countries supplied those people. So not only that, it's most likely not gonna stop there, because the head of the Department of Homeland Security is to do an audit over the next 30 days and then present Trump with further countries that should also make this list. But the other thing that they said, discrimination against religion. I wonder if Jeb Bush agrees with this, because Christian immigrants and refugees will be given a high priority. However, Muslims the refugee program is basically being gutted. Trump has indefinitely blocked Syrian refugees. They will not be coming whatsoever. And all refugees have been stopped for the next 4 months, except for Christians.
So planes have literally been grounded of people that were planning on, being able to be a refugee in this country. Those planes have stopped, and I think there's an issue right now that one of the airports, I think in New York, has refugees, and they're detaining them. They're not letting them onto American soil, I guess. So it's effective right away, and
This
we'll
is where
see.
some empathy needs to be practiced. Imagine going through everything in Syria, and as your family, I'm sure you've lost members of that family, you've lost friends, your job, your whole way of life has been completely thrown in the trash, and then you get your first piece of good news that you're being resettled in America for a new start, probably going to reunite with some people that are already here. You get on the plane, you make it to American soil just to be turned away.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine.
All these people that voted for Trump based on what is happening right now and liked this part of it, and this was a positive in voting for Trump. If you really believe that, I say you lose all credibility unless you would figure, not even figuratively, but hypothetically, be willing to go turn those people around your damn self. Everybody's calling liberals a bunch of pussies. I'm saying conservatives are. Because I'm telling you right now, most of these people that voted for shit like this or voted for Trump for reasons like this do not have the balls to go up and turn away a family like that. There's no way. But they do have balls to do some chicken shit stuff less than a day now since signing this executive order on the beginning of what will likely be a much greater Muslim ban than it is. The Islamic Center of Victoria, located about 125 miles from Houston, Texas, was burned to the ground. It's just... there'll be more of that. I'm sure there will, unfortunately. But if you thought that Trump was only going to affect you or going to affect the rest of the world, no, immigration, Muslim ban, all of that is connected. And Trump has already said he's going to withhold federal funds from sanctuary cities. Now, I have a problem with this. My problem with this is the war on terror. You can't define a sanctuary city. There's no definition for it.
Well, the law also has a problem with it. It's illegal.
Who needs? No, not if the president does it. It's not.
The president can't control state funds and how states distribute their funds. So it's my God, it's crazy, but it's reality. So.
But I think that what this is going to turn into places that probably liberal cities, larger cities, New York, San Francisco, LA, that sort of thing. But what this is when you declare war on something that does not have a clear definition or a clear, in the war on terrorist case, a clear location, you've opened the floodgates to wherever you want to go to justify anything you want to do. And I think he took this right out of mainly Dick Cheney's playbook, in the sense that when he declares war on sanctuary cities and threatens to withhold funds, whatever the case, this is what he has in mind, and it gets worse than that. Another thing he tweeted out this week is he is threatening to send the feds into Chicago for the killings. Now, the most terrifying part about this isn't necessarily the fact that Trump thought of this himself. Now, Chicago is ranked 18th for murder, so it's not even in the top 10. Regardless, there is a major issue there when it comes to gun violence and drugs, organized crime, gangs, that sort of thing. But they only rank 18. The problem with this is that Bill O'Reilly, a half hour before Trump tweeted this, quoted the same stats that Trump did in his tweet 30 minutes before, and when he brought in somebody to interview, asked them if deploying federal agents or the federal branch of the government in there to restore law and order was a good idea. 30 minutes after that, Trump makes this tweet.
That's where he gets his ideas. Late night TV.
Not intelligence briefings, but Fox News. And he even said in his recent interview on, I think it was ABC that he did earlier this week, that, he criticized ABC and other news organizations and basically told them they need to look at what Fox is doing. Well, this is fucking scary. Jesus Christ.
When we're on, that topic, his chief advisor, Steve Bannon, said the media needs to shut their mouths.
Yep.
Shut up. Wow. So speaking of shutting up, one of the things I forgot to mention on the news portion of the podcast earlier this week, we talked about some of the web pages that were removed from the White House web page. There was also one other thing, and that was the hotline, I guess, basically a comments number that was on the White House web page where you could call and leave a voicemail and give your comments. So Trump's team has taken that off the website. So, Revolution Messaging, the group that Bernie Sanders hired to handle his communications, um, got together and they created a little workaround. So, there's a website where if you put in your phone number and your email, Revolution Messaging will send you a link to your local Trump business that you can call. And basically, the idea behind this is Trump should have put his businesses in a blind trust. That's what previous presidents have done. They've sold their assets, put them away, so they can govern the country legally. Donald Trump has not done that. He's wants us to believe that giving the power of his businesses to his sons is enough. And so our way of combating that and voicing our opinions is to make calls to these places. And this is not something that I would necessarily do because I wouldn't have called the White House office before. But for anybody that would have, I would encourage you to look at this kind of workaround and do what you got to do.
But we want to say this. Please be nice to the employees. You have no idea where their political stances are. You don't know if they've been trying to find another job so they can leave and get out underneath the Trump umbrella. This is not in any way, we are not advocating that you harass the Trump businesses, the Trump employees, more along the lines of harassing his business. Forward your complaints through this medium. But again, understand you're talking to somebody else and you do not know what their views are, so we're not trying to in any way make the lives of working Americans who happen to work for Trump make their lives any more difficult than I'm sure they already are. However, one other thing that I forgot to bring up was another thing that our tax dollars are going to be paying for is an investigation into somewhere between 3 and 5 million illegal votes. Trump has ordered that investigation. It hurts him so much that Hillary Clinton won the popular vote by 3 million that this little fucking man baby feels the need to spend our dollars, time, and energy of the federal government on feeding his ego. I mean, there's really no other way to put this.
Yeah.
But you know where it's going to end up, right? Like, they're going to investigate this. It's going to come out that 5 million people or a large portion of people did commit voter fraud. And then I'll give you one guess where that's going to lead to. Voter suppression. That's where it's going to go. They're going to use this as a reason to impose stricter voting laws everywhere. So just something else for everybody to look out on.
Okay, so one thing on this part of the show that we were promising to do is hold Democrats accountable. And one thing that we've talked about basically for the last month is who is going to be the head of the Democratic National Party, basically. And even though, I mean, it is kind of a figurative position, it is important on how policy set and how things are move forward in the Democratic Party, which really is going to determine how people like myself and Mike included, how we vote going forward. Are you guys going to distance yourselves from the Republican light that we've gotten? Or are you guys going to truly stand out and be progressive? So one person that we've talked about as a progressive is Keith Ellison, and he's running for head of the Democratic chair. And when he first started running, he said he would, as chairman, impose a ban on all lobbyist money. And this ban was imposed by President Obama in 2008 after he won the election. So for the last, 8 years of that cycle, we didn't take lobbyist money. Well, Debbie Wasserman Schultz got rid of that for the 2016 election.
Of course she did. God damn it. Sorry, I'm still sour.
Understood. So yes, so that was the initial plan. We were going to get back to banning the lobbyist money. But unfortunately, Keith Ellison has taken a turn. He said he would not impose a policy. It will be a democratic process. I think there's 400 or so people that represent the Democratic Party. He would let them vote and decide whether or not going forward. He did say if it's the will of our party, that's what we'll do. But it would bring the responsibility onto everyone's shoulders because we'd have to go find that money.
Now,
Yes.
let's start with this. Now, just before anybody thinks that Democrats are obsolete or more likely to stand up against this type of shit than Republicans, let me just remind everybody that last week we roasted Cory Booker for the same reason. For taking large amounts of donations, somewhere in the ballpark of $250,000 just last year, from medication companies, which he then led a revolt with I think 11 other Democrats to basically shoot down a bill from Bernie Sanders. So we talked about that last week. This is not Keith Ellison. The reason why Bernie's been promoting him, and the reason why we were thinking he was going to be, a good chairman, is because he's not taking the stance of, if this is what the Democratic Party wants to do, no, fuck the Democratic Party. They are part of the reason why we are in our current situation with Donald Trump, why the Republicans not only hold majorities in the House and Senate, but also 2/3 of the government, of the governors in this country. There's a reason for this. Everybody looks at this and says, America's so screwed up. Look at everything that happened with Donald Trump, and they voted for him over Hillary. No. Look at how screwed up Donald Trump is, and then wonder why Hillary Clinton still fucking lost. This is the part about the Democratic Party where they're in such fucking denial. And this is where Tea Partying the left comes in. Alex and I are going to have more information on this when we return to the show in a few weeks on how we can get involved and start holding this party accountable. We're going to dedicate some time to that. So, sorry, there's my rant.
No, you're good. And, that's pretty much what we talked about, why we're here, why this show is taking place. And, the interesting thing that to build on that, we talked about, obviously wanting the more progressive candidate. Let me just give you an example of what South Carolina Democratic Party Chairman Jamie Harrison, who just happens to formerly be a lobbyist at the Podesta Group. I'm not sure if that name rings any bells, but so let me tell you what he said, and he's also running for the campaign. Right now, to take away lobbyist money and lawyer money would leave a hole of $18 million. I don't see how you could replace that. We got into this thing where we're holier than thou, but it's about doing what we need to do as a party. So that's the mindset of the general Democrat. Is why try to be morally superior to these people? There's money involved. Let's just take the money, and there lies our problem.
There does lie our problem, but there is one thing that we should do. There's a calling right now for progressives, really, but Democrats as well, and those of us that still feel lost when it comes to party affiliation. There's a call for action right now, and I'm leaning towards it, but I'm on the fence about it. About calling your Republican House rep of your state, or certain Republicans such as Lindsey Graham, and John McCain and Jason Chaffetz of Utah. Jason Chaffetz was a Trump, basically supporter at the beginning of this week, and now he is calling for mental evaluations for presidents, because you should be your mental state and emotional state should be evaluated before you are handed nuclear codes. So there's a calling right now, like a call to action, that we show some support to these Republicans that are standing up for Trump. And I'm leaning towards this mainly because for at least until 2018, our future's kind of in their hands. The ones that are going to the only people in a position right now to stop Trump on the congressional level, or rather at the government level, are sane Republicans, no oxymoron intended. And I know that probably just shatters everybody's hopes, but that's kind of the reality of the situation. What do you think about
Yeah,
this?
I mean that's a fair assessment. At the end of the day, these people have to look their family in the face, and they have to look their constituents in the face. And I would imagine that that's going to become harder and harder to do as we go on, and more of these executive orders are issued, or more of his policies are outlined. People are going to say, "Wait a minute, that's just too much." And I mean, obviously, I'm not going to vote for a Republican just because they don't support
No,
Trump,
yeah, right.
but yeah, you would definitely have a lot more respect for somebody who can at least is not morally bankrupt, who can say, you know what, that's enough. So,
And the thing
uh,
is any of them can do this. Jason Chaffetz is a jackass, but hey, he can be better in my book.
and even John McCain
Right.
on the torture issue, right? He's came out and said, like, look, America will not torture. This is how we're not going to waterboard. We're not going to torture. If you try to make an executive order, he said, I'll get my people together in Congress and we'll make a law that says
Well,
it can't happen.
he did
I mean,
say.
obviously,
Sorry, go ahead.
go ahead. No. I mean,
Um,
obviously, Trump would have to sign the law, but
Right, but he did say during the joint press conference with the Prime Minister of Britain yesterday that Mad Dog Mattis does not agree with torture as well, and has debated Trump, and Trump did say that he will leave this decision up to the general, even though he strongly disagrees with it. Because I'm sure, I mean, he sounds like a man that has experience torturing people, and I don't put it past him. There's plenty of videos going around right now of how he treats Melania. There's a photo at one of his events, or a video footage of one of his events where he's standing on stage, and she walks up to join him, and he grabs her uses his tiny hands around her pinky and twists it, and she clearly tells him to stop, and then turns around and smiles to the cameras. I mean, he's a fucking bully by definition, and I think I don't know. I hopefully this is actually what's happening. I mean, if Mad Dog Mattis over there doesn't agree with abortion and Trump's going to take his advice, that's not necessarily a step in the right direction. But I mean, we'll take what we can get at this point. Yeah. You you got anything else on Ellison?
I mean, we'll monitor the situation again. I think the election comes up in February, which, I mean, it's right around the corner here now. So let's see how it goes.
Yeah, this is just. It's only been a week, and to be honest, I'll be honest with everybody. Alex and I are having a hard time. Like, we rushed to start this whole thing because there's just so much. There is so much shit going on. We used to be able to cover everything in 1 hour episode a week, and now there's going to be stuff that we're going to have to skip and miss. But anyway, so we want to say you noticed something with our intro. If you guys didn't recognize that part of that intro song before our intro music started, that was from the Mary Tyler Moore Show. Mary Tyler Moore, she died on January 25th of this year. She was born on December 29th, 1936, so she just barely lived to see 80 years old. The reason why we want to kind of honor her today is because she died the week of the largest march in U.S. history, the Women's March that took place with millions all over the world and brought, we'll get into it, but 3 times a greater crowd than showed up for Trump's inauguration, no matter how much that tiny-handed little bitch doesn't want to admit to it. Anyway, so it's a little bit about Mary Tyler Moore. She started off acting on the Dick Van Dyke Show, which is very successful in the 60s. And then she kind of had her own spinoff called The Mary Tyler Moore Show, which debuted initially on September 19th, 1970. This was groundbreaking because women were housewives, and that was it. Dishes, children, taking care of the husband, making meals and shit like that, grocery shopping. And then all of a sudden, you have this very first TV show that features the lead female character, self-titled, on the show, who moved to a new city, Minneapolis, Minnesota, after a breakup. She got a job as an assistant producer at a newspaper, dated multiple men throughout the show, lived alone, and had no kids. And just to give everybody an example here, this show came on in 1970. Women weren't even allowed to open up a line of credit or obtain a credit card until the Equal Credit Opportunity Act of 1974. So 4 years prior to this is when this show that celebrates an independent woman, and it is something I think more important. She worked for, as everything was back then, professionally, a male-dominated establishment where chauvinistic, like misogynistic comments were made on a regular basis in a comedic way that she was able to rise above. So showing an independent woman like this was taboo and also groundbreaking at the same time, and led to other TV shows where women were able to headline and star in their own shows, such as Murphy Brown. Oprah Winfrey has talked about the impact that Mary Tyler Moore made for her and her inspiration. It is stated that later on in life she became a bit more of a libertarian and even praised Bill O'Reilly and Fox News moving forward. But we're not here to talk about that right now. This is about the groundbreaking stuff. So please hold your criticisms for taking a minute to admire her and the contributions she made to the women's rights here on the show.
Yeah, she was also an animal activist, so.
She was an animal activist. She refused Gloria Steinem's invitation to become a feminist. She did believe in traditional values when it comes to the wife's role in a marriage, which I honestly, there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with being a mother or being a stay-at-home mom. Shit, both of our moms were that for quite a while. There's nothing at all wrong with that. But she does agree with this. At least you have the option to have a career. You have an option to lead the life you want. And there's nothing wrong with not wanting to be a mom, whatever the case. Anyway, so unfortunately we lost her earlier this week. But just before that, we had the Women's March. The New York Times quotes the Women's March had 3 times more people than Trump's inauguration. That was 160,000 people estimated that showed up for Trump's inauguration, compared to 470,000, so nearly 500,000 that showed up the following day. And this study was conducted by 2 crowd scientists from Manchester Metropolitan University out of Britain. It looks like nationwide, approximately 3 million people marched, making this the largest protest march in history. Millions more worldwide, including Antarctica. So if you guys are looking to get involved, this is another thing we want to do, is point out ways for you guys to get involved. Check out womensmarch.com. You can create your own event or look up other events that are scheduled to take place in your area. But Alex, there's another group that's looking to they're marching today, actually.
Yeah, they're actually marching today. Scientists got together. They have the first, I guess, March for Science in Washington. It's basically to fight Trump's anti-science policies. The other kind of a medium for that has been after his gag on federal agencies that pretty much involve science. A lot of the Twitter accounts, they've been silenced, but they've gone rogue. So I have a small list of some of the federal agency Twitter accounts that you could follow if you want to get information regarding these things. And a lot of these have kind of had some drama, I've noticed on Twitter already. They're disassociating themselves with people that work for NASA or whatever the case. But it's definitely interesting to follow. They are presenting science and facts, and I think that's going to be harder and harder to come by. So a lot of these, actually, I think, most of these are as for alternative. So the Alternative U.S. Forest Service is the Twitter account. The Alternative FDA, Rogue NASA, I like this one. This one's the unofficial resistance team of NASA. Um, Follow for science and climate news and facts, real news, real facts.
So wait a minute.
Kind
We
of,
need alternative Twitter accounts for real facts, as opposed to getting alternative facts from real people in positions of power. The world's upside down. It's
that's
just
where we're
fucking
at.
back. This is bizarro world, man.
The Human and Health Services (HHS), alternate HHS, EPA, alternate EPA. This one, their official opening is: he can take our official Twitter, but he'll never take our freedom. Unofficially resisting at EPA. So, and the last one is Alt USDA. Their opening is resisting the censorship of facts and science. Truth wins in the end. So there you have it. That's basically what we've got to do to get facts out from the government.
And let's hope that end comes before the end.
Yes.
Man. So, a few announcements here. So, with Alex and I doing 2 episodes now a week, we're gonna try to get Nick on here more to kind of to help us out. But as I said, it's a lot to keep up with. And with us doing 2 episodes a week, we will be doing 3 weeks on, 1 week off. We contributed 50 episodes last season. 51 if you count the full interview that we posted with Crystal. So in a sense, I mean, we took a few weeks off last year, but for the amount of content that we posted, I mean, that's one for every week almost. So it's people are encouraging. Robert Rice posted something that I shared on my personal page about you need to take a break, because this is the end of week 1 and we got 4 years, and Alex and I don't want to get burnt out on this. If you stay involved in this stuff, you're going to see way more negatives than positives, which can be discouraging. And, we don't want to fall into that mess, but we want to do our part. And like I said, we'll take a few minutes on the Standing for Reason podcast episode when it returns in a few weeks to talk about what Alex and I spent the 3 weeks off that we took over the holidays, what we spent that time doing, and who we're actually passing our torch to, and who we're going to throw our support behind. We'll have way more information on where you guys can get involved on not just specific issues that are going on, such as the Women's March and other activist sites that you guys can check out, but what we're going to try to do on a global scale to benefit all of these different interests and social rights and economic stability and foreign affairs, all that stuff. So, you got anything else?
No, that's a good wrap up and summary of what we're looking forward to do, and the episodes coming, we'll get some more details. So, thank you guys for listening, and keep the resistance.
Yeah, Viva la Resistance. Okay, so check us out on the Age of Reason podcast page on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter at AOR_podcast. And for everything else, AORpodcast.com. We'll see you guys in a few weeks for AOR News.